Welcome into another Untitled interview edition of the Untitled Film Project Podcast. Today, you know him as the director of The Nun, and his new horror movie Whistle is in theaters everywhere starting Friday, February 6th. Corin Hardy. Corin, thank you so much for doing this, man. Really, really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me. Let's talk.
For those who love the horror genre, how will Whistle hit them? And maybe more importantly, for those who are horror curious, how will Whistle grab them and make them talk, over the next few weeks or so?
Ooh, in a non-spoilery answer,
Very important.
I
Yes.
guess as an English director and growing up in the 80s, I watched a lot of Fast Times at Ridgemont High or The Breakfast Club and a lot of horror movies like Nightmare on Elm Street and The Blob and Donnie Darko and movies like Lost Boys. So I was wanting to maybe put the love of those movies into my own kind of iteration at some point. So when I read the script for Whistle, it was set in an American high school, but it combined that sort of like teenage angst and heartbreak and horror with what you might call an ancient sacred artifact, like from the cursed object horror genre, a death whistle. And I had never seen a movie yet around this particular sacred artifact, the Aztec death whistle, and this is that movie. And when our characters hear the scream of the whistle, it pulls upon their future death to hunt them down, and so it's a kind of emotional roller coaster ride.
How much easier or tougher, I guess, in fairness, does it make it when you have a lead that's an up and coming star like Daphne Keane? She's been in some X-Men movies, of course, and Marvel Universe and all that. Obviously, done some TV shows in the past, some main roles. But when you have somebody who's, I'm just assuming here, moldable, right? But also, an expert, being on set. What is
Yeah.
that like?
I was just, really lucky and thrilled to have Daphne Keane as Chris in the movie, as well as Sophie Nélisse and the rest of this great ensemble. And she's obviously, grown up in films, and she's got a very cinematic presence on screen. There is only certain people who you can, hold a really close up on their face, and they kind of exude. Charisma without doing anything. And Daphne had to play a role that was also a character that's kind of beginning in a very kind of grief-stricken place and has to slowly come out of her shell as both this sort of new relationship starts to blossom. There's a sort of love story as the undercurrent of Whistle, whilst also the horror of their future deaths start to come for them. So she brought a lot of energy and had great chemistry with Sophie Nélisse. The two of them were like unstoppable friends, chatting right up until take, and I'd have to sort of like calm them down before we went into this emotional scene. But I couldn't be happier to have Daphne and Sophie and Sky and Jaleel and Percy and Ali and Nick Frost and Michelle Fairley in this movie.
All right, so Gangs of London. What was it like? What's it like working on a TV show versus a movie? Like from your perspective.
It was a really, really kind of invigorating experience. Getting involved in, first of all, you're telling a story over, in that case, sort of 8 hours, 8 episodes with multiple characters and storylines, and we've been very ambitious. It was Gareth Evans is created the show. He's phenomenal, known for his action. So coming into that world, initially I was just going to come in and do an episode as a sort of guest director. Ended up doing 3 episodes, then doing four, and doing the final episode of the first season, and then asked to do the second season, sort of take the reins of it. So, and then sort of oversaw the second season and directed half of it. So it was a lot. I mean, it's like if you think of a film, you're going to be probably telling a sort of 90-minute to 2 hour story. And in this, it was, not only 8 hours, but you're tying in with the previous 8 hours as well. So just a hell of a lot to kind of take care of, and really, really got a lot out of that. And particularly in this sort of balance of drama and action and fight choreography and outrageous set pieces. So I brought elements of that into Whistle, but in a more of a kind of a horror sense.
Okay, so lastly, I appreciate your time again. It's been a joy talking to you. Where did your love from film come from? What was that first seed that was planted, as far as you can remember, that kind of
Yeah.
got you to this point today?
I mean, I can track it back to sort of age 6, watching King Kong, the original,
Oh,
at my grandmother's house in Dorset, sitting on a bed that was made of yak hair, and thinking I was sitting on the monster of King Kong. And one of the first experiences seeing a monster, I think, and falling in love with it, being in tears at the end, and also kind of like captivated by the monster. That tracked through sort of Ray Harryhausen's Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, and that led into American Wealth in London, The Thing, Evil Dead, Alien, and love of horror, and then as a teenager, movies like The Lost Boys and Nightmare on Elm Street, and that's sort of what I drew upon in bringing Whistle to life.
I was going to ask you, do you take elements of those purposefully? I know there's like obviously inspiration and things like that, but purposely, do you take elements of those favorites of yours or those inspirations and put them in to your work now? Do you try to do that or no?
I think they are like when you have first encounters with things, whether it's like going on a roller coaster for the first time, or listening to a piece of music, or encountering a movie. When they're really impactful, they burn themselves into your conscious. We're always drawing upon the things that we love, and I'm sort of trying to recreate the feeling I had when I first saw those movies, and they, particularly at that sort of teenage age. So unconsciously and a bit consciously.
Corin Hardy, director of the new horror film Whistle, has been our guest on the Untitled Film Project podcast. Corin, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. We wish you nothing but the best with the film, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks so much, Jeremy.
Thank you for listening to the Untitled Film Project podcast. To support the show, please rate, review, follow, and subscribe. Original music by Jeremy Schwartz. Special thanks to the Music City Film Critics Association. Editing and post-production by Jeremy K. Gover. Voiceover by Chad Bennett.